this is basically a political construct which has served to protect Social Security program from and to ensure those benefits get paid as long as there's money in the fund, although for a long period of time it allowed payroll taxes on workers to be higher than they needed to be to fund current benefits. That was supposed to go into building up a surplus, but the surplus in the fund was actually being used to fund deficits in the rest of the government. So it wasn't really building up a surplus. In the future, that's going to reverse as we start drawing down the trust fund balances. And at that point, Social Security will be a net drain on the rest of the budget. So we'll have to get the same level of budget deficit, we'll have to raise other taxes more or cut other programs more. What people will look at is the date of trust fund exhaustion. That has moved around a little bit, and at 2037 now it's a little bit earlier than it's been in previous reports. So probably attention will be focused on whether that's moved back a little bit or stayed the same or moved in the other direction. People also look at the year at which revenues might start to exceed outlays, that is, tax revenues exceed outlays, and that's much earlier actually, and currently it's 2015 in the latest report. But I think that's not really the most important figure. What really one should be focusing on is what are they saying about how much our obligations are under the program, how much the commitments are in terms of future benefits as the size of the economy, because that's what tells us really what the burden taxpayers will have to incur to fund this program. Right now it's roughly 4.8%. It's going to projected to go up over next quarter century to 6.1 or 6.2%. So it's a substantial but not horrific increase as a share of GDP. It's certainly something that can be dealt with. Well, there's the political and there's the economic reality. The political reality is the trust fund is dedicated to pay for these benefits, and people resist the idea of using the trust fund money for other purposes. Now, the economic reality is there's no such thing really as dividing some revenues into some purposes. All revenues are funding all the rest of the government, and the trust fund is really just one part of the government lending to another part of the government. So actually the Social Security program will be drawing net resources from the rest of the federal government in a few years when the outlays start exceeding revenues. There's nothing magic about when it crosses zero, except at that point we're no longer, the trust fund taxes are no longer fully funding Social Security benefits, so Social Security benefits for a while will be also funded by interest on the trust fund balance, but that of course is a payment from the rest of the government to Social Security. The balances actually won't be starting to go down till 2025 or so. But the important thing is really the fact that this program is not sustainable over the long run. So when you look at 2037, in 2037 revenues will suddenly pay for 78% of the benefits according to the trustees' projection last year. I don't think anybody is willing to put up with the idea that Social Security benefits will suddenly drop 22% between 2037 and 2038. So it's not really, doesn't really make sense to say, oh, we have enough money to pay until 2037. We don't have to worry about it. If we're being prudent and we are going to try to just use the trust fund to fund Social Security, then we're going to start needing to repair that a long time before 2037. I think that the takeaway really, and we're getting to see this now more and more, starting with the earned income credit, people pay payroll taxes into the fund, but then some people get credits against the income tax, which offset those payroll taxes. So it's very hard to say who's bearing the burden of actually contributions to the trust fund. You just have to say who's bearing the burden of contributions to all of government. And I think we're going to get into that same situation later on, that is maintaining this link between a certain set of tax sources and a certain set of expenditures is getting more and more tenuous. And at some point we need to think more holistically. What have we promised to people? Can we meet those promises? What are all the resources we have to do that?